Welcome back to another episode on the Oak and Rock Fatherhood YouTube channel. I am your host, Zachary Small, joined by Anthony Migliorino. We're talking fatherhood, we're talking family, we're talking how we can improve ourselves as men to better connect with our families in our world. And today we have a special guest. That would be Heath. Heath is a father of three, over 20 years married, over 20 years of helping men help themselves. An excellent guest for this topic. Heath, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Great. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to speaking and talking to you guys.
You know, I had you on the Family Alpha podcast, an excellent discussion. I'm looking forward to dropping that one. We've got you here on Oak and Rock. So on Family Alpha, we were talking about your specific situation with your relationships and what you were doing in life with your mission. Now we're going to talk about Heath, the father. Heath, who is leading the children. Heath, who is helping other men lead their children, how to be better examples. So before we dive into all of that, what is your background? You know, what got you into this, and why have you found yourself speaking on subjects like family and fatherhood and parenting?
Well, I come from a long heritage of fathers that were committed to their children. My dad, my grandfather, my wife's father, grandfather, and I went through kind of an internship of a family when I was around 19, 20 years old, and the internship was really focused on developing yourself, focusing on yourself. And so I started reading all kinds of books about being a father, really ages 18, 19, and 20 years old. So I've been leading men for about 25 years. I've led literally tens of thousands of men face to face about leading themselves so that they will have the privilege of leading, influencing their children for the rest of their life. I do believe that one man can do, another man can do. So you see what other guys are doing as fathers, and you learn the principles. You take on those principles and you bring it into your own God-given family. So I'm also a youth pastor at my local church. And so I'm part of the men's ministry at my local church. We got about 100 kids in our youth group. So I lead about 50 guys each week. So I've been doing that. I've created programs for fathers to go through their sons, of helping them go from boyhood to manhood. So that's what I've been doing the last 25 years.
No, I love to hear it. I mean, especially with what we're talking about, Oak and Rock Fatherhood, you know, the exact thing of setting that example and helping these men help themselves. So I wonder, you know, throughout your face-to-face work, what brought you to the social media side of the house? Because we crossed paths via Twitter. So that we had the whole dad Twitter, the spaces, and I'm like, I was picking up what you were putting down. You know, and then Anthony, you and I, we've had several spaces together. How did you find yourself doing this electronically?
Well, I always thought social media was really a waste of time until our mutual friend, Reeves Writer, said, hey, man, you need to get your message here online. And so it was really through him that I started to put some of my material through Twitter. And he said Facebook, Instagram, those things aren't the best. Twitter is where your message needs to go. So he's really the catapult for me to get involved.
That's a solid one. You know, seeing the guys mix it up and make this more normalized. I mean, Anthony, that's one of the things that when we first met, well before Oak and Rock, even before I think our first Family Alpha podcast, which was like 2 years ago, dude. So, which is why I was thinking about that today. It's insane how long we've been doing this. But you were talking about, you know, your goal is to make this normal, to make the discussion on fatherhood normal. And now you see men like Heath who are coming from the physical world, finding their way to talk about it with a much wider audience because physical proximity has been eliminated. So with your vision of men coming together and having this network, is this how you foresaw it playing out?
Are you talking to me, my vision?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I think this is excellent, right? To have a guy on with the experience that Heath has, what he's done, what he's accomplished. And we can sit down and we can have a conversation about fatherhood, about becoming better fathers, what that looks like, how we go about it, offering support to other men. Even a lot of young men I speak to, they're in a position where they're like, I don't have kids, but one day I do want to get married and I do want to have kids and I want to be prepared. So I think about what we're doing is great, right? We're leading our family. We're helping our family flourish and thrive and be peaceful and happy. But there's also, these breadcrumbs we're leaving for the future generations. And those kids, these young men growing up, they're going to be powerful, right? They're going to be a lot better than we were. And I think we discredit that a lot, right? Everybody says kids these days are messed up. 30 is the new 21. Like there's no credit given to the young men who are actually going out and doing great things. And that doesn't happen unless we have men like Heath who offer his time and, his wisdom and his knowledge to helping these young men. So I didn't really think it was going to take off like this. It's good to see. It really is. With Reeves, all the guys on Dad Twitter, it's amazing to see this take effect and how everybody's connected and sharing this message.
I guess that highlights something. So Heath, one of the things that we all roll with, we each have our shtick, and I believe for the best connections to work and to work out in the family, you need to know the children. You need to know the person that you're raising. You need to get to know them on their level and who they are as an individual. And so when I speak to that, it's, the longer you have kids, the better you get at parenting. So the longer you're intentional about fatherhood, the better you get at being a father. So when I start this, my shtick is wholly the presence versus presence. Don't buy them things. Sit down and give them your time. Anthony constantly talking about bringing peace and connection into the home. So for you, when you start with these fathers and getting to reconnect with their family, what is your foundation? What's the system that Heath is plugging in to help these men kind of reboot or reconnect with those that they're leading, be it their sons, their daughters, or getting their wife on board with their sons and daughters?
It's exactly what you just said. Guys need to get involved in their kids' world. So when my daughters were growing up, when they were young, they loved to play with pet shops. And pet shops are these little tiny animals, and they would create a whole little city of them. And when my girls were young, I sat in there and got to know the 183 little pet shops that they had. And I got to know their nicknames. I got to know the city. And again, I don't play with stuffed animals as a man, but that's what my daughters wanted to do. So I totally got involved in that. Now my one daughter's a soccer player. The other one's a dancer. And so my daughter and I work with her on her ballerina. I work on her with her stretches. We do core work together because that's what she's into. My other daughter, I created a little soccer field. I have 10 acres on our property, and I created a little tiny soccer field so her and I can do it. So again, instead of them, and I do get them involved in my world. I like to hunt and four-wheel and all that, but you get involved in their world. And one of my go-to quotes is rules without relationship equal rebellion. And so if you want your kids to get involved with the things you're into, or when it comes to correction and discipline, it's all relationship. So with the dads that I work with, it's all about, growing in that relationship. Pretty much what they think's exciting, Dad, you get excited about it. Whatever they think is, top of the line, do it, Dad. If it's academics, Dad, get involved in academics. If it's sports, do sports. But don't try to get them into your world. Make sure it's balanced. You're into their world, and then they also love to be in your world because you're dad.
So how do you find with modern society and a lot of people being very comfortable that a lot of parents, their hobbies is relaxing? Maybe it's being comfortable watching TV, maybe it's video games or something like that. How do you advise those parents to help get their kids who, if they've seen that, all their kids want to do is sit and watch TV too? So how do we start new patterns? If you're getting in their world, but their world is electronics, well, is that really a good world to enter?
So I teach, and it's what I implement based off research, that kids should not have a smartphone till age 16 and no social media till age 18. We know all the research, the stat that show what happens to a kid. The average kid today gets a cell phone at age 10.8, 10 years, 8 months. So all the dads in my community, I tell them to lead, to man up, to dad up, and don't do that. And so when it comes to your family, you need to think of your family like a pleasure ship. And as your kids get older, the kids are always looking to see if there's something more exciting, more fun, that they can jump onto that ship. So I tell the dads, you got to provide other opportunities besides the cell phone, besides the TV, besides the Netflix. And so again, for us, whether that's the soccer field, the four-wheelers, going on multiple hikes several times a week, you got to create all the stuff because I'm not going to allow a tablet or a cell phone to influence my kids more than me. And so it's tough. It's tough. But when my kids were around 8, 9, 10 years old, I had them start reading the articles about cell phone use, about tablet use, or what happened. I just started going to the mall with them. We'd sit down literally at a bench, and I said, "Hey, let's just watch these teenagers here walk around." And they're literally walking around on their phone all the time instead of interacting. So I did all this, real world scenarios so my kids would buy into it. So now my son is 19 years old, and he is so glad that we did not allow him to have social media when he was 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. He said he wrote a book. My son wrote a book when he was 14 years old. They've just done other things. So I just want to encourage dads, lean in to being the disciplined dad. Lean into, you're trying to give your kids a 5, 10, 15-year head start. And it's hard because culture, media is pushing to dumb down your kids, which I have a totally different view of my kids for the future. And now that my kids are at the end of their teenage years, it's the evidence has backed it up. They're grateful that my wife and I have done this.
Yeah, wow. That's I don't want to say it's crazy, but I'm trying to imagine what you said in my home, not giving my kids a cell phone until they're 16 or social media until they're 18. But I think that it would be a difficult task for fathers to do because it is the norm. Like, would you say the average age was 10.8 years old?
10.8
wow.
is the average smartphone.
Yeah. So that's, what do you do? Have you ever been faced with times where your kids might have fell out of place or, maybe been ostracized or not seen as normal because they weren't involved in, let's say, this dysfunctional obsessive behavior of social media?
The reason they haven't is the community that we're part of. Because I'm the kind of youth pastor of my church, I've kind of driven the agenda, and I just educate. I literally just show what happens when your young tweens get to social media, what happens to their brains. And so because of that, most of my kids' friends did not engage with the cell phone at age 10. Now, some parents decided age 14, 15. Again, we don't judge that at all. We say, this is what we're doing. And so my kids, they literally never begged us for it. My son, he turned 18. He's 18 years old. He decided to go ahead and do some Facebook. And after about 3 weeks, he actually got out of it because he said, I was just watching cat videos and it's just wasting my time. For him, it was just wasting his time. He wanted to do some other stuff with his life. So, but if they were feeling ostracized, if they were feeling that, my wife and I would have worked through that. We would have talked them through that. One of our favorite sayings is let's reason together. As your kids get older, you got to reason together. And we would have came to a happy medium. But we are, my wife and I, we have certain principles that we believed are research-based, that are truth-based. And so we would have kept talking to them and worked on our relationship with them. Even if my kids would have disagreed, they would have understood why mom and dad made that decision.
Yeah. No, and I think that's important to note, right, is when we have a strong value or opinion or principles we live by, we have to be able to communicate with our kids, right? Why we do this, and this is how we do it. And, this is why it's good. If we don't take the time to explain that and reason with them, you're going to get probably a hesitancy to accept it from the kids, right? They're going to push back. They're going to say, well, we can't just do it because dad said so. There has to be some sort of explanation. And I think that's what more fathers need. They need to take that time to explain things to their kids, right? They're young people. They don't understand as well as we do. And if we don't take the time, what I see a lot of times happening is things get very restrictive. Parents get strict, or parents get stressed out and they get depressed, they get upset. And now you've created a relationship that's pretty much broken, and it's hard to combat that, right, as a parent. So when you explain these things, Heath, to other fathers, and they do have, let's say a dad says, well, I'm going to not have my kid, I'm going to not let my kid have a phone until he's 16. But there's pushback. What do you tell them? Like, how do you guys deal with this? Is this something that happens a lot? Is it common, or is it because the principles were set prior? Is it really not an issue?
Oh no, adolescents. Of course, adolescents, they push back. I mean, that's what an adolescence is. They push back on any authority. So I always tell the dads, man, you need to look forward to your kid becoming a massive individual. As my kids became teenagers, I looked forward to it. I loved as they were going to grow into being a man, being a woman. Looking forward to that. So again, there's no fighting. There's no like, again, how can we massage this? How can we massage this principle that mom and I decided? So with the dads, I just tell them, you got to keep working on your explanation, the rationale, the reason. Now, again, some kids are analytical and then some are very emotional. So you got to work on both. You know, if you got the brainiac that they see the research, they see the statistics, like, oh yeah, I don't want that in my life. That's a little bit easier. The emotional one takes a little more time. And that's why as dads sometimes just want to be authoritative and just say, well, you're going to do this. Again, that creates the rebellion or the separation between us and children. And so us as dads, we need to work on it. Because again, you don't want compliance, you want understanding and compliance. You want understanding and obedience. You want both there so that it becomes a lifelong habit, right? Anybody can suck it up and deal with it because dad said so, mom said so. But you want lifelong habits for your children to be able to take in their own life, then also to be able to teach and educate other people on why you're doing what you're doing. So with the dads, now because a lot of dads that I found don't like to read, I push them.
You don't say.
They don't like to read. So, a lot of dads, because they don't read or they aren't looking for educational opportunities, they don't know how to explain to their kids why. And so I tell them, again, if you're going to be a dad, you either got to watch the podcast, you got to go to YouTube, you got to read a book, you got to read the articles so that you're able to compel your children why you're doing what you're doing. Because today, the iPhone, that thing is just constantly pushing. They want the iPhone 13 for Christmas. And so you got to do the research or you'll come across as a fool to your kids. And it's hard, but dad, again, if you want to be a great dad, you got to do the research so that you're able to explain to your kids why you think this is the best reason for them not to have the social media or the phone at a certain age.
Do you think, as we're talking about this, we're looking at fatherhood for modern times. That's kind of how I view it. We're parenting in modern times. We're facing things our fathers didn't face and our grandfathers definitely didn't face. They didn't know what a phone was. So when you go back, one thing I have been curious about, and I would love your take on, is in the past, you had kids, you did your job. Those kids, they served the family. They went out, they started their own family. They contributed to the community. You thrived. Nowadays, I cannot tell if I'm around parents who are doing better. And so I'm not seeing these parents who just are dismissive of their kids, or if half of the parents out there are just their kids exist in their home and that's the end of it. And they just don't really care. They let themselves go while the other half are crushing it. Is that something that is new to modern parenting where you're like, plug them into a screen, they're fine? Or back in the day where they just basically saying, go to the farm, they're fine. Take this newspaper, they're fine.
Well, there is some good research recently for us guys, us dads. We are spending significantly more time with our kids than the generation of 20 years ago. And so whatever has caused that, whether people like Anthony, dad Twitter, just more research, that's awesome to see. But
I will note that my name was not on that list.
Well, sorry.
Go ahead, Heath. No, it's fine. Not personally taken.
I know, Zach, you referenced Anthony earlier on that. I do think, even if you look back at the biblical days, people were with their kids fishing. It seems like Jesus was with the disciples, or dads were with Johnny on the farm, or dad was with Kenny hunting. So the whole with. Now, we all know the Industrial Revolution took us out of the household back in the 1800s. So we're no longer with the kids, but now we're with the factory. And so the Industrial Revolution kind of moved on. So now people are in the office. So even as an entrepreneur, you still got to find a way to be with. And you don't want them to be with Amazon, with Netflix, with fill in the blank. And so the way that I tell if a family, is really doing stuff with their kids, because you can't go inside the household, is the dad helping to coach the football, the basketball team? Is the dad telling the kid, hey, we're going to go to the park and play Frisbee? Is the dad going on vacations with the kid, going camping? is the dad, with? And so when I hear about dads, taking their kid to the mechanic shop, taking their kid to, taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, that gives me a little view inside the household that they are intentional because they're doing with stuff with their son and daughter. So for me, that's how you can tell if a family is doing well or not doing so well.
No, I'm 100% behind you. I mean, like I said, the presence versus presence thing, absolutely. And I guess that does answer it because I'm looking at these people and you see a lot of the parents who are like, they're just not there. You don't see them doing things with their kids. They're doing their own thing and their kids happen to be coming along. But you do see a lot of parents doing things. And so it's an interesting discussion to see how we treat our kids when they're in our lives. What do we view them as? Are they an investment? Are they a burden? Are they fuel for better growth? Some men have kids and they become their best selves. Other men have kids and they just stop trying at everything. And it's why, and that's, if we can start getting there, I think we can provide better value to people because we know exactly what we need to address. And so I think it's a part of the identity, but as well as in the way that society doesn't have a rite of passage for young boys, we don't have a pipeline for fathers. It's you made it to fatherhood, cool. Exist and die. There's no program for these guys. They don't know, well, what do I do from here? And, I really like your approach to that is you continue, you lead, you set the example. I love the fact that you're doing this on a community level because your friends to have peers who are understanding the same because you're a part of the leadership that's helping the entire community grow and have these maybe not exactly the same, but very similar values and focuses. I think that's great. I think that's the example for all. It's one of the reasons I do coach youth sports. I want to be involved. I want to be involved at the parental level. I want to have an impact in these kids' lives, have their parents see it. I bring their parents into the fray, and collectively we improve. So that's sort of my angle to doing what you're doing through the church. But have you seen or do you know of any program or any guidance that comes to, hey, you're a dad, check this out?
I think there's so many people that have tried stuff. President Obama, he started the whole My Brother's Keeper, and he started a program. The problem is most programs, there's just so many competing programs. And so, there's a boys club. We have a strong boys club here in our local city where, fathers or guys sign up to mentor younger boys. But I don't know. People are so busy trying to do whatever that they just can't grab a hold of certain programs. So I think there's a bunch of little programs, which I'm so grateful that there are all these programs. But as far as that national movement, I just think there's kind of like a tapestry. I think there's a tapestry of movements that create a brilliant man movement. That's what I hope for. Every city, every community has their own every father has it in their own household, and we all learn from each other. I've been doing this for 25 years, but I love, I think you guys are a little younger than me. I just love younger guys that have a different vision. So I learn from guys in their 60s, guys in their 20s. I love going to see new dads with their little 8-month-old, 10-month-old. When I see that joy and man, I can't wait for this. I'm like, yes, bring that. I love that. That's just that newness, that freshness. Because even though my kids are at the end of their kind of kids years, I still want that freshness in my life when it comes to being a dad.
Yeah. I would say, as far as the national level and what this takes shape in the future, how it looks and how impactful it can be, I think everything has to come back to our home, right? The examples that we set in our home, the examples we set as men. I don't think you can change the country or a nation without first fixing your home. So like you said, Heath, living intentional, right? Being a father who's present, who's doing things with their kid. I would even take it a step further, right? We need to be super dialed in and aware of how we speak to our kids, if we're yelling at them, if we're being honest, if we're being a man with integrity, if we're saying, hey, it's important that we're honest. It's important that we treat people right. Well, we have to do those things with our kids. Otherwise, no matter how many fishing trips, vacations we go on, it's going to fall on deaf ears, right? Our kids are not going to really feel that love. So I think if we want to see this whole dad Twitter and the spaces explode, and we really need to show other men, other fathers, how cool it is, how great it is to be a dad, right? And we have to have our kids actually embody that. And what I see in the future is our kids need to speak up and talk about how great we are as men. Right now, you have the whole feminist movement. To me, that's just a bunch of young women who had shitty dads and they're lashing out. Right? When my kids grow up, they're going to be super proud of what I did. They're going to be proud of my friends and the guys who I had conversations with, talking about how to be a better dad. I think that's how things will change eventually. But for right now, I believe it starts in your home. Right, it starts with you.
You know, Heath, there are actually three things that just came into play here. You know, you were talking about how men are really busy, and that's a fact. I mean, my phone's right in front of me, and we're on here, and I've got a laptop over there running something else for after this. We're busy people who are constantly connected. You know, and then Anthony was talking about embodying the values versus just espousing them. We have to live it out. You shared a great tweet recently talking about intentions. We judge other people on their actions, but we judge ourselves on our intentions. And how many fathers out there are so busy and they're espousing these values and they've got these great ideas in their head as to being a good father, but their actions aren't aligning with that. And so therefore they're like, I'm a good dad. But then you ask that same father, well, what'd you do with your kid this week? Oh, I was wicked busy. You know, I had a lot of work at it. So you couldn't make time for your kid. Do you think that's also an issue? Is the prioritization of acting upon these things and doing? Or do you think it's just a simple fact of making the kids a priority above comfort?
Yeah, I tell dads, hey, when your kids become a teenager, you need to tell your friends, hey guys, I'll see you in 5 years. And what that means is you can still do your hobbies. You can still do hangouts. But when your kids become teenagers, your kids are number one. Because during the teenage years, again, you built all the foundation from 0 to 12. But when they become teenagers, that's when, again, the manhood, the womanhood's coming out of them. And they can be led toward poison or towards life-giving water. So, Zac, I totally agree when it comes to priorities. So I have certain principles, priorities with my kids, and I've been doing it for years. I take each one of my kids on a monthly date. It's a one-on-one time that it's just dad and I, okay? Whether it's going to IHOP for some pancakes, whether it's going to play disc golf, but it's a one-on-one time that we just do that together. Another one of my priorities is I tuck my kids in bed every single night. And so my son is 19 years old. We still do it. And the reason we do it, it's a one-on-one connection time. Another one of our priorities is family dinner. I mean, we have family dinner every night. Now, of course, because they get teenagers and soccer and dance, you know, it changes a little bit, but that's one of our priorities. Another one of my priorities with my kids is that they see me kiss their mom every day. They see me lead mom, love mom, apologize to mom when needed, because I want to give them a picture. I literally want my household to be a marriage conference every single day for my kids to be able to go to and see this is how it's done. This is how a man loves a woman. This is how a man serves a woman. This is how a man creates intimacy, romance, leadership in the household. And so, correction, you know, I believe that most struggles for guys is that they try to instigate with their kids anger by how they lead, their body language, their tone, etc. And so my whole life, I have tried not to inflame any kind of anger in my children at all. So I think guys say they're busy because they don't have these certain principles of what they're going to do with their kids. And so I gave you guys a few of our landmark principles with our household of what we're going to do. I mean, literally when my kids were young, I created a process that we did not tell the kids, hey guys, time to go to bed. And you know, kids, I got to go to the bathroom. I got this, just constant complaining. So I said, what can I create here so that our kids are not full of anxiety at bedtime? So we literally just turned the timer on. So our kids, they know they had 30 minutes to get ready for bed. And so the timer, they could come out and look at the timer, but my wife and I were not getting on them, saying, pretty much just nagging them. So I encourage most dads to create processes so that they're able to lead their kids with priorities. Because guys, when your kids become teenagers, tell your friends, I'll see you in 5 years. All right. Which means I'm going to make sure my kids, I don't lose them. I might lose you guys, but I'm for sure not going to lose my teenage kids. But again, if you have kids ages 0 to 12, it's how you lead them on those years. That's the foundation for your teenage years.
Heath, my kids are 12 and 9, man. You're speaking to me. I love it. But so,
I guess that means
just said,
peace. See you later, Zach. We're not talking for a while.
Yeah, I'm out. You guys, I got to go. I got a 13-year-old to start giving in time to. Heath, you mentioned, several examples there. I'm going to hit a few. You talk about tucking your kid into bed. One of the things I do, I don't literally go up and put the blanket under his butt and tuck him in, but every single night I'll go, when it's bedtime for them, whatever, I'll walk in, I kiss my daughter on the forehead, and then I rub my son's head, and I tell them I love them both that night. Because I'm like, if I die in my sleep, my kids know I love them. That's sort of my mindset, is no regrets. The other one, to sleep. I have never understood why that is so complicated or conflictive in homes. Literally, from birth till now, I say, hey guys, it's time to read. They know that means you got 15 to roughly 30 minutes to brush your teeth, go to the bathroom, grab your book, go sit and relax. It takes them from the board game we're playing, the movie we're watching, if we're watching a show, if they're playing a game, whatever they're doing, they're like, all right, cool, time to go read. They do their thing, they have their system, they choose like how that end of the day goes. And they coast down, and by the time I walk in their room, their eyes are already fading halfway. They close the book, it's bedtime. There's no need for the frustrations that I see in homes. And it's great to hear from you a similar approach. Hey, I love you. Have a great night. I'll see you in the morning. Hey, timer's on. You know how much time is left. You choose your adventure. Just make sure that, hey, we're coasting to bedtime. It's time to get some good sleep. So it's excellent to see you embodying these values. These dads, you're correct. They come in, they try to bull their way through. Do this. I'm the authority. Here's what we do. It's 9:00 in the dot. Get to bed now. There's 2 minutes left in the movie we've been watching for the past 2 hours. No, get to bed now. You're like, why is that the priority? Why are you so focused? And I through working with Anthony, I agree. There's a lot of fear there. There is a fear that if you bend a little on a thing, people are going to take advantage of you. You're afraid that all of a sudden chaos is going to happen because you gave them an extra 2 minutes on their bedtime. So I do think that there's a lot of fear that men need to face in order to get to the point that you're speaking about and that I'm also living, to where there's peace and harmony in this. And there's no fear of viewing me as a weak man because I said it could stay up 5 minutes late.
Yeah, well, I think, I'm sorry, Heath, I just wanted to jump in and say, I think what Heath was saying before about anger and frustration, right? If we eliminate that as a dad, our kids are obviously going to follow the same path, right? They're going to be calm. They're going to be collected when things do arise. And that fear that you talk about, Zach, I think that's what you see, right? From the fear comes the anger and the frustration. So you have a lot of dads who don't know what they're doing. They've never spoken to a man like Heath about what they can do better, how they can do it better, right? What are you doing? What works in your life? They're just going off of all that pent up, repressed anger that they have from their own childhood, and they're dumping it on their kids. So I think, that's the light bulb moment, right? When you sit down and you listen to a man like this, you start to realize there's better ways, right? The examples I set for my kids, they're going to show up in real life, right? They're real. And your kids follow that lead. They don't need to be frustrated and angry themselves.
So Heath, it's the new year. 2022 has arrived. What, for the men who are listening and they're looking to start locking things in, what is the starting point that you advise men who come to you? Like, hey, I hear you, Heath. I like what you're doing. I want to be living a life like that. I want to connect to my kids better. Do you base it upon the age of the children, or is it sort of a template of helping the man rebuild himself before even really reconnecting and focusing on the kids?
You definitely got to look at the ages, of the kids, because kids have different needs. But just going back to like the bedtime, the reason the kids are rebelling there is they want freedom. Literally, it goes back to freedom. And so for the guys that are listening, if you're in the workplace, and imagine having a boss that's always on you because you came in 2 minutes late. You took 63 minutes at lunchtime, or whatever. What would that do to you? You wouldn't like it. And so you're treating your little 8-year-old like an employee, but you're the bad boss. And so they want freedom there. And so create a process. There's so many processes out there. Again, we went with the timer idea. There's so many out there, but make it enjoyable for your kids to go to bed. And so when my kids were younger, we talked about submission. Submission comes, the word submarine, come underneath somebody's mission. And we talk about, hey, submarine time, mommy and daddy are getting ready to do this and that. And you get to willfully, joyfully come underneath somebody's mission. And again, if you're an inviting, engaging dad, they're going to want to come underneath your mission, whether it's bedtime, whether it's eating this, whether it's cleaning the room or whatever. It's like joyful submission because mommy and daddy have it, for you. So that's just a little bit there with the bedtime. They want freedom. And yeah, you can push that red, that red peg there or that circle peg into the square, but they're going to fight it. They're going to do that. And so, yeah, rework it. Learn from some other guys on how you can redo it so that you don't have a fight there at nighttime. But as far as going into 2022, I'm literally working with a guy right now that his daughter is 15 years old. And this guy, his temperance is a little more gentle. He doesn't like to create any kind of waves. Well, his daughter is very strong. His 15-year-old daughter is strong. And right now, his daughter does not respect him at all. And so we just had like our third meeting a few days ago. And he was just sharing all the reasons why, but ultimately his daughter does not respect him. And so I, person said, why should she respect you? And his first response, well, I'm her dad. And I said, that's not good enough. It's not good enough for a 15-year-old that you are the dad. Even though for me, that's an appropriate response. Yeah, you're the dad. But I said, can we have some tough conversations right now? So we talked about his, his physical fitness. Yeah, he doesn't work out at all. And I said, even your daughter would like to have a dad that's got some, bigger biceps, or you can run faster, or you can do whatever physical thing that is. What about you doing a 30, 60-day program? And then when your daughter sees some change, say, hey, Dad, why are you doing this? He said, you say, I've realized I've let some things go, and I just want to go ahead and pick some things up. That would shock your daughter right there. So anyways, as guys go into 2022, they literally need to look at, are they worthy of their kids' respect? Are they worthy of having some admiration in their kid's life for you? And whatever that might be, I would encourage guys to pick one or two things that you need to go ahead and go for excellence. The word excellence means to rise above. And so you need to rise above whatever mediocrity is in your life. Whether that's your finances, your work, your marriage, pick like two things that you need to go ahead and man up. Another thing going to 2022, I believe us guys, we do best when we have responsibilities put upon us. I think us guys are like a horse in a carriage. And a carriage behind a horse, it is designed to have all kinds of things to weight it down. When it is not weighted down, that horse is running and that carriage is just bouncing everywhere. And us guys, when we feel the weight, responsibility, the privilege of leading people, man, we are not bouncing around, but we are laser focused. And so I don't believe hanging out, the life of ease is what God has for us. But he wants us to have a world-class marriage. He wants us to have kids that are thriving in every area of their life. You should feel the responsibility. I want my kids to be thriving in every area of their life. So what can I do to help encourage them, manage them, etc.? But take on these responsibilities. Yeah, if your son is playing on football right now, become an assistant coach. If you think your public schools are lacking, man, go ahead and run for the school board. Take on these responsibilities and go ahead and say no to Yellowstone. Go ahead and say no to your favorite TV show. Go ahead and say, and have these responsibilities, because then when your kids are growing up and they become full-fledged adults, I remember dad, mom, they weren't just doing all the hangout stuff, but they were putting responsibilities upon their life to change their generation, to change their community, to change their city. So that's what I encourage dads to do in 2022.
For a second there, I thought you were saying don't go to Yellowstone National Park. And it took me a second to put it together. I'm like, why not go to Yellowstone? I was like, maybe it's the money with the oh man, he's talking about the show.
Yeah. Kick this guy off. Yeah. Get him out of here.
No, that's good though. And I think a lot of men are going to hear that and they're going to be like, that's a lot of work. And it's important to understand that these kids are worth that investment. It's worth that work. It is busy, man. We're all three of us are living it, and I love the fact that you give such a direct message, because I'd see oftentimes men will come into my DMs or they'll shoot me an email and like, hey, this is the life I want, but I'm not getting it, blah, blah, blah. And I ask them, like, why do you think you deserve that life? The life you have is the one you deserve because it's the one you've worked for. You're the product of every decision you've ever made that has brought you to this point. You're here because of you. And I'm not saying that to insult or anything like that or twist the knife, but you're the problem. And the strength there, the beauty of that, you're the solution. You can fix this, and then I'll go through whatever they're facing. But I really appreciate the fact that you're doing the same. Is like, hey man, you want respect, but you haven't earned it. And that's not something that's given. It's almost something that's taken. When you work yourself as hard as you can, become your best, they have no option but to respect that, because they understand this didn't just happen. It wasn't luck. The size, the mass, the muscles you put on, the money that you made, the debt that you killed, that all came from work. And so therefore they are forced to recognize that at the bare minimum. Maybe not respect it, but they're forced to recognize it. You take that from them. And I think a lot of men should be more aggressive in their approach to taking things like that from the world. Take back your time from the boss. Take back your respect. Take back your sense of pride in self, and watch how your family then wants to give that to you. They will give you that respect that you're looking for because you've earned it. And you're not doing it for them. This man, he's not doing it just for his daughter to like him. He needs to be doing it because he needs to like him. He needs to look in the mirror and be like, I am a good man. And then watch how the daughter fully is like, yeah, I now see that too. But you can't want something that you're not willing to work for. And so, especially with parenting, kids are really smart. You can't bullshit your way around them. They can see you going on Twitter, be a good dad out in public, be a good dad, smile for the camera. And then behind closed doors, go to your room, don't speak, sit down, shut up and color. There's got to be some congruency there.
Oh man.
I can just say another. Go ahead, Anthony.
No, I just wanted to say, Zac, I had something to say. I lost it with Zac's go sit down and color. So throw it to you.
Another thing in 2022, if you look back at 2021 and you can't think of stories in your life of how you've raised kids to a higher level, if you can't look back and just be able to share 1, 2, 3 stories, man, make that a goal in 2022 to be able to get into people's life to just share stories. I mean, like 2 nights ago, I am sitting on the couch. My kids, they love Lord of the Rings, and we're watching Lord of the Rings movie. I like it too. And all of a sudden I get this message from this girl that 6 years ago, her father regrettably committed suicide. It was a terrible situation, horrible situation. Her dad was in his 50s. My wife and I, reached out to her, supported her, tried to help her. A number of other guys reached into her life. And the message I got from her, she said, hey, I'm getting married. Will you walk me down the aisle? And I got that and I literally just started tearing up. Because this girl, even though we haven't talked to each other about 4 years, she saw me as some kind of father figure. And her dad took his life. She wanted me to walk her down. So Tuesday, January 18th, I'm going to walk her down. And that's just the kind of stories what happens when you remove the busyness of pointless stuff, right? Pointless things that don't bring life to people in your family and your community. And you decide to spend some extra time doing whatever. So guys, make sure you're doing stuff so you have stories at the end of this year. They're able to look back and say, man, I was part of raising people to a higher level.
Well, that's incredible, man. And what an awesome story with that girl. That's great. I guess woman, getting married. That's fantastic. To your point, I guess here's the pushback I've been finding, and I'd love to hear your input on it. I will say, keep the light in the home as bright as you can. Let the darkness of the world stay out there. And people are like, well, how do you know? You need to be a part of the change. You need to get involved with the resistance and whatnot. And I constantly stress, like, my aim is not to go out and fight the federal government. My aim is to ensure my family is as free from the system as I can get us. And all the tweeting about things that don't matter, I asked these men, do you think all of your tweets changed anything? Do you think those hours that you gave to watching those YouTube videos, what did you gain or really change? That I, who did not do those things, yet was able to stay up to date on just information as things evolved, was able to stay ahead of the curve. Why do you think these men are so caught up in wanting to be a part of something that's honestly, I'm not going to say futile. I am going to say these fathers are giving more attention to COVID and vaccinations and mandates than they are to looking at the children in their home and giving them their undivided or undistracted time, attention, and energy. Do you think it's the calling of this is our fight, this is our moment, this is, our generation's burden to take on and win? But there's a degree of modern separation of what true conflict and action is. So these tweets are activism in these men's minds.
Man, I think it's a ruse. I think.
All right, it's not just me. I had to get that out, man, because I'm like, it's not just me that thinks this, right? Like, I feel like I'm insane.
Yeah, I think there's something inside of us. We love to be part of epic battles, right? We love to hear. We love to go to movies, Gladiator, Braveheart, We Were Soldiers, whatever, and like to hear about this, be part of this. And so when there are massive amounts of people fighting against this, whatever it might be, we want to be part of it. But man, I just think my own life, again, when I die here, whatever number of people come to my funeral, there's only going to be so many that actually come up to the casket and cry. And those are the people that I want to invest my life in. Those are the people that I want to talk to, share with, the people that are going to cry because I left this earth and I have a favorable memory, in their life because of what I did. And so, yes, I'm up to date on what's happening. And because my kids are teenagers, I help them walk through, what is happening. And I'm big on sharing both points of view. As I share, what's going on, like with the whole January 6th thing that happened a year ago. And here's what happened, both sides. I'm trying to help them make their own decision on that. But I am not an activist. I'm not an activist for whatever big war initiative. I'm an activist for my wife, my 3 children, my beloved family and friends. That's who I'm an activist for. That's who I fight for. That's who I work out for. I work out just so that I can be dangerous. I'm very meek, but power under control. So I'm not fighting. I'm not working out to be part of a militia. I'm fighting in case some guy tries to do something. But yeah, guys that get caught up in these epic battles, they're wasting their time. And so I encourage you guys instead battle your own battles in your own household.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, right? Why do you join a gang? Why do young men join gangs? But they want to be a part of something because there's no healthy attachment at the home. So to me, this comes back to parenting, right? Is the better we can the better we can create healthy attachment in our homes, we eliminate. I'm muting.
All right. So while Anthony's dogs kill each other, it's interesting when you go along those lines of thought. 2021, a lot of men really got caught up in it. And all right, cool. You want to make change. That's one of the reasons why, I'm running FOE. That's one of the reasons why I really enjoy being a part of Dad Twitter. Real change is occurring there. We're not just talking. Like these men, we get enough DMs, each of us collectively or individually, as well as collectively when we're on the calls, where these guys are saying, hey, thank you for this. I applied this. I was able to connect with my daughter. I have a better relationship with my son. The same way you're talking about, I'm not training to go fight all the cops in the street. I'm training to, when something goes bump at night, I answer the door with confidence because I know I'm physically capable. And a lot of these men who say a lot of these things would be terrified if an actual knock on the door occurred, because now that barrier of safety has been broken, which is the electronic medium. And I think as fathers, we need to understand we don't need updates. Our children don't need updates. Our children need an upbringing, and we need to be uplifted. We need to bring ourselves to a higher standard, and we need to bring our children up under us. That's our job, to pave the path, to learn the hard things, and hopefully help our children from falling into the holes we fell into. And it's completely doable. And I think this is the year that I would love to see a lot of the fathers shift their focus towards their family. I'm looking to set out a few dates. My son and I were going to be going on these like survival style camping events. And we're going to go out there, and there's going to be an instructor. He's like, hey, here's the situation. Here's what you got. Go. And him and I are going to have to figure it out in the woods, without much supplies with us. That's much better to me than sitting on here and slamming my keyboard about how you need to be prepared for the apocalypse. No, go learn some skills. Go do some things. And, if we can get more fathers doing that, and with men like yourself, you've led a lot of men, on the Family Alpha podcast, we went a little deeper into that, as to a few of the things you did through the church, your men's groups. There are men offering these resources. These opportunities are everywhere. A lot of church. So I'm in North Carolina now, a lot more churches here than Rhode Island. And I see a lot of these communities going out and doing things. So I would say breaking the electronic barrier is one of my highest recommendations for fathers in 2022. Go meet and actually connect and grow a real network and do some real things.
Good. We are better together as men. And so, yes, your local churches, local Boy Scouts, there is such just a powerhouse, a boiler room of guys that are doing great stuff. And again, if you just watch CNN, Fox News, all those things, guys, they're not going to lead you to greatness. Get around these other communities and you're going to see guys, and don't look for the prototypical guy. There are guys with all kinds of different body types, academic, fortitude, finances, but that are doing strategic things for their kids. And man, just sit down and listen to them. I mean, I have in my local church, I got so many older guys, 16 above, that I literally just ask them questions. Again, tell me something you did with your son to help him become more courageous. Looking back at your kid, what did you do? What did you do with your son? And again, the one guy told me recently, he's like, I never allowed my son to not be involved in an activity. He had to do sport. He had to do debate. He had to do theater. He just had to do something. And that's what I made sure my kids had to do something. Why? Because when you're not doing anything, you don't become courageous. But when you're doing something, you got to push through your fear. You got to push through the stuff. So I want to encourage all guys to get outside of your household, get outside of your phone, and go connect with other guys a little bit older than you.
Your dog still fighting, Anthony?
I don't know. I was thinking I might have to go downstairs and check to see what's going on, but I think we're good. I was getting nervous there for a moment. I thought maybe, Heath talking about this government stuff. It might have been somebody coming to my door.
That's the knock we're talking about. That's good, man. One of the things, as men watch this, again, I always say apply the information. Apply. Don't just listen to people, apply it. Heath, if men have questions, they want to work with you, they want to connect with you on a deeper level, do you have anything coming in down the pipeline for them to jump on board? Do you have a method of communication you prefer? And I guess what would your final point be for those listening that do want to change and they're on board with what it is that you're saying?
Yeah, because I'm coming on board with Twitter, I'm going to be releasing a number of resources throughout this next year. Again, I've been married for 23 years, and I love to romance my wife. I love to keep her passions fueled for me. So in about 10 days from now, I'm going to be releasing kind of the epic greatest Valentine's week in your spouse's life. So that'll be released in about 10 days. A little bit later this spring, I'm going to be releasing the Year of Becoming a Man. This program it's a year-long program for fathers to take their sons through. Pretty much designed for boys ages 10 to 15, for fathers that aren't sure what to do as far as the whole rite of passage, to tell their son, son, here's what a man is. So that'll become later this spring. And then in the fall, I'll be releasing epic, legendary bachelor parties. But these are the bachelor parties without strippers, without alcohol. But as far as life-giving, memorable bachelor parties that you can send that guy into his marriage really affirmed and built up. So those are kind of the resources. As far as reaching out to me, probably the best way is through Twitter. And my Twitter handle is Trailer Club, TrailerClub. What Trailer Club is, this is literally the men's programs that I lead. And the idea is that every lady wants to live in a house. She wants to live in a castle one day. Us guys, man, we can live in a trailer. Like it really doesn't matter. But we need to get around guys that want to learn and sharpen each other as far as becoming a man. And so I've been leading that for about 25 years. But that's the best way for guys to connect with me.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing those things drop. It's amazing the resources that are being pumped out of social media. I love seeing fathers use social media to connect with other fathers, to improve their position as men at large, and to see men being able to create resources like those that they can apply in their home. I'm all about application, man. If you haven't, picked that up, I'm all about men actually doing things because I hate talking about stuff. Like, let's just go do. These conversations are great, but when we hang up from here, I'm going to take the knowledge I learned from you and use it. And so that's why I'm finding success, is because I apply what I learned. So again, thank you for your time, Heath. Anthony,
Yo,
what you got for the good people?
what can I say, man? I love these conversations. We were doing the dad Twitter space, and it's good to put a face, to actually sit down and talk to the man, have a real conversation, is as real as it can be. And I see one day doing exactly what he's talking about, right? Is men coming together in person, in real life, and creating events and doing things and growing more of an online community, but also in real life. I think that's important. Um, I would really be interested in hearing about the initiation, the rites of passage that you're going to be doing for young men. I think that's something that's desperately needed. There's a lot of young men who are going through life lost, and a lot of fathers who don't know how to bring their men into their boys into maturity, and take responsibility for their life. So it's cool to see all these things take shape. It's excellent to be a part of it and know that it might be the most trending thing on social media, but the more men you talk to, you start to see the impact we're having, and I think that's what's important.
It's growing. And if this is a resource you like, obviously like, subscribe, share the episode, but more importantly, go in, follow these men, curate your timeline on social media. So when you go on the computer, you jump on your phone, you're learning something. Like Heath's son, you're not just watching cat videos, wasting time. He realized that quick. He's like, no, it's not for me. As a father, that shouldn't be for you either. You shouldn't be sitting there scrolling through football highlights from the weekend or scrolling through cat videos. Get on your phone. When I scroll through my timeline, it's literally action item, action item, action item. It's almost annoying because I'm like, man, I got to finish doing the first thing before I do the next 2, 3, 4, 35 that are below it. But these guys are putting out such great content that you just want to keep up with it. Your peers should make you better. Your social media use should make you better. And that's what we're trying to do here. So again, make sure you've liked and subscribed and spread the message to those who need it. And as you do so, make sure you're embodying what it is you're learning and not just espousing it. We need to live these things out through our actions. Heath, thank you for your time. Anthony, another one down, brother. Let's keep it rolling. And for all who tuned in, stay present. It's been another episode on Oak and Rock Fatherhood.